entirely to Bharat, the campaign brings together students, educators, thought leaders, and citizens through inspiring talks, lectures, competitions, and civic initiatives. The lecture series of the campaign seeks to instill patriotism, inspire responsible citizenship, and encourage every young Indian to think for Bharat, speak for Bharat, and work for Bharat. Today, it's my privilege to welcome our distinguished guest, Sri Amish Tripathi, one of the most celebrated authors and a passionate voice who talk about Indian civilization, mythology, history, and our cultural heritage. Amish Ji is a best selling Indian author, former diplomat, and broadcaster. He has written around 13 books, sold over 8 million copies, and have been translated into 21 languages. His first children's book, Dhruv Tara and the Great Indian History Quiz, launches a planned 7 book series. A former minister, culture and education at the Indian High Commission in the UK and director of Nehru Centre, London, Amish Ji has also hosted and produced acclaimed documentaries including Legends of Ramayana with Amish, Journey of India, Legends of Shiva with Amish, and Ram Janmabhoomi Return of a Splendid Sun. An IIM Calcutta alumnus and eminent alumnus award recipient, Amish Ji has received several honors, including the Dwarka Prasad Agarwal Award, the 2025 Asian Academy Award for Best Factual Presenter, and an honorary doctorate from the University of New York in 2026. He is also co-author of upcoming AAA video game Age of Bharat and co-founder of the Archer Amish Award. Through his book and public conversation, he has encouraged millions of readers to look at India's timeless tradition through a contemporary lens. Today, we are delighted to have him with us for an engaging conversation on My Bharat, understanding a great socio-cultural civilization. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Soumya ji. Um, I'm going to make some brief comments on what I think about that. And then, of course, all of you, please feel free to put in your comments and questions. And Soumya ji will put those questions to me. Um, Understanding a great socio-cultural civilization, that is Bharat. A thing that is not clearly explained to us in our history textbooks, because our history textbooks continue to remain um, a colonized version of our story. We haven't decolonized adequately from our past. But one of the things that is not appreciated enough in our history textbooks, and therefore our children may not appreciate it as much, is that India is the oldest surviving civilization on Earth. We're perhaps the only pre-Bronze Age civilization that is still alive. Pre-Bronze Age, matlab minimum 5,000 years old, and most uh, scholars say that China is not 5,000 years old. It probably began post the Bronze Age. So we are the oldest surviving civilization on Earth. Most others which began their path to civilization with us could be, ancient Mesopotamia, which was the time of Gilgamesh, uh, ancient Pharaonic Egypt, the Mycenae culture, which was a mother culture of Greek culture. These are all dead. These are all museum pieces now. Something as basic as if you just go to Egypt today, and if you ask today's Egyptians, who are genetic descendants of Pharaonic Egyptians, if you ask today's Egyptians what their ancient name was, that what did their ancestors call their own land, you'll often not get the right answer. I did that as a pop experiment. My wife and I, we'd gone to Egypt around 2 years back. We'd done a cruise on the Nile. We went to many places, and I was actually just asking ordinary Egyptians that I was meeting that what was your ancient name. You'll be surprised how many of them said Misr, which is actually an Arabic adaptation of an Aramaic word for Egypt. Egypt itself is an anglicized adaptation of a Greek word, Aegyptos. The ancient Pharaonic Egyptians called themselves Khem. Now think about it. Most Egyptians today, at least in my pop quiz, they weren't aware of this. The only person who told me the correct answer was a university professor, and obviously you would expect him to get it right. But if you go around India, and I'm not just talking about university professors, common people, and you ask them 5,000 years ago, what did our ancestors call ourselves? What did we call our land? Practically everyone will give the right answer, Bharat, because that is exactly what we call ourselves today as well. This is the very definition of continuity. There are so many other examples of continuity. Small things, and even small things, like I'd seen photographs of excavations of of the Indus Saraswati sites, even such as Harappa, Mohenjo-daro, even Rakhi, there were patterns on the tiles at that time, right, which would have been made Indus Saraswati civilization times. And I remember seeing similar patterns in houses in Varanasi when I used to meet, my grandfather. So that is the level of continuity. But when we are talking about a socio-cultural civilization, is everything exactly the way it was 5,000, 6,000 years ago? Of course not. There are some things which keep adapting, and some things which have remained common. That is the very definition of a civilization. There is the famous ship of Theseus uh, simile, which I'm sure all of you have heard of. Those who haven't, I'll just tell you very briefly. There's a Greek guy called Theseus, and one of his ships was anchored in port, and over many decades, each plank of the ship was, would some would rot, so it would get replaced, and over time, every plank in the ship was replaced by a new plank, right? But it was replaced one by one, over many years. And then the philosophical question was, is the ship of Theseus the original ship, or is it actually a new ship because every plank has been replaced? So, what happens when parts of your culture actually change, right? So, in socio-cultural terms, in ancient Vedic times, which historians tell us is 3,500 years old, I believe it was a lot older, many thousands of years ago. In fact, I believe that what Graham Hancock says about our civilization, uh, that we are probably the descendants of an antediluvian civilization, which means a pre-ice age, a pre-end of the ice age culture, which is more than 12,000 years old, when the sea levels were a lot lower. But yes, that needs more research. But I tend to believe that that version that historian Graham Hancock has put off, and I actually use that in my fiction books. I assume that to be true, and I use that in my fiction books, which is why in Meluha they speak of an ancient uh, civilization, Sangam Tamil and Dwarka, which was more than 12,000 years ago, or 8,000 years before Meluha, and which actually led to the Meluan civilization. Anyway, coming back, if you see in Vedic times, are the most ancient mandals within the Rig Veda. Um, our mode of worship is more yajna rather than murti puja. That was something that our ancestors uh, tended culture. We were also allowed, indeed encouraged, to drop things that did not suit our culture anymore, right? Um, so there could have been rituals that we followed, in ancient times, because such was the need of those times. So, for example, if you see many ancient Ayurvedic texts, among the biggest sections in the ancient Ayurvedic texts tended to be on snake bites. Okay, and there's a logical reason for that, because in ancient India, among the biggest causes of death was actually snake bites, right? Now, those were things that were taught very rigorously in our tradition to Ayurvedic students in our tradition. But now in urban areas, snake bites is not really a major source of death. It's still there in rural areas, but again, it's not the biggest source of death, source of unnatural death. So, do we need to to reflect new things which are causes death? Of course, man. Our ancestors wouldn't say no, no, no. You have to stick exactly to the tradition that was given. And in some things, adjustments were considered necessary. So, for example, look at our calendar, right? Um, the Indian calendar, the traditional Indian calendar, is actually among the most complex calendars of the ancient calendars. The Arabic calendar, which is sometimes called the Hijra calendar, essentially only follows the movement of the moon, right? Which is why you notice the Ramzan dates keep shifting and keep shifting quite drastically. Uh, the Western Gregorian calendar, which all of us follow today, like today, when we say it's 14th August, it is 14th August according to the Gregorian calendar. This is a Western calendar. This only follows the movement of the sun, which is why you'll notice the year is adjusted every leap year to adjust to the movement of the sun, because the exact uh, revolution time of the earth around the sun is not exactly 365, is 365 and a quarter days. So you have to adjust that every 4 years. The Gregorian calendar follows only the sun. The Arabic calendar follows only the moon. The Indian calendar is the only one which actually follows both the moon and the sun. That's what makes a calendar extremely complicated, right? Because every month is actually built around the moon, right? Which is why you have the Krishna Paksha and the Shukla Paksha. Krishna Paksha is the waning moon, Shukla Paksha is the waxing moon, right? And each ending with either each fortnight, essentially ending with either the Amavasya or the Purnima. Now, this follows the movement of the moon, right? But every 3 years, to adjust this into the solar cycle, you have an Adhik Mas, right? Which adjusts the movement of the moon into the solar year. So our calendar follows both the movement of the moon and the movement of the sun, right? But is the only movement that the earth does, other stuff, is it only guided by our rotation and revolution, which is what shows up in the movement of the moon and the sun, or are there other movements of the earth as well? There are other movements too. Like, for example, if you've ever seen a top, you've played with a top when you were a kid, it wouldn't just rotate, it would also wobble. It's kind of natural, right? So the earth doesn't just revolve around the sun, doesn't just rotate, which actually impacts how we see the moon. The moon's revolution also impacts, of course, but the rotation also impacts. It doesn't just do revolution and rotation, it also wobbles a bit. That phenomenon is called precession. And that the length of one entire cycle on that wobble, precession, is 26,000 years, which interestingly is the length of time of the human full yuga cycle. Anyway, coming back, when the earth is actually wobbling like this, then the nakshatra, it actually changes, right? Obviously, when your earth is wobbling, which means even the sun should actually change a bit because the earth is wobbling, which means that our winter solstice and summer solstice will adapt, which is why the pole star also changes roughly every 1500 2000 years. The logic, the calendar that we are following, it has not been adapted for precession in the last 2000 years. It's our fault. Our ancestors had taught this to us, which is why our summer passed on to the younger generation, who must have the right to add their own firewood as well. That is precisely what keeps the flame alive, which is the point I'm trying to make, that we keep the flame alive, we keep the continuity of the old, we still call ourselves Bharat, but we must keep adapting to the needs of the age. Our ancestors suggested that to us, and the very nature of Ritu, of the endless cycle and of the universe, means change is constant. I just gave you the example of the calendar. We have to keep adapting. Uh, like, let me give you another example, of sometimes changes. And like the calendar change is obviously a good change that we should do. Sometimes changes came into our civilization, which weren't such good changes, and we must question and rechange them once again, right? Like, for example, the concept of kalapani. This was a thing that, at least I know, among the traditional Indians, I know even my among my ancestors, no, no, you cannot go out of India, you cannot cross the the seas. We lose our dharma. We lose. This is not there actually in our ancient texts, because we were the greatest seafarers of the ancient world. Bodhayana, who was a Brahmin who traveled to Cambodia and who actually Hinduized and Indianized Cambodia. Well, he should have lost his dharma if he traveled all the way to Cambodia, whatever, 1500, 1600 years ago. Um, our traders used to travel up to Rome, up to Egypt. We had the greatest shipbuilding industry in ancient times. So we were great seafarers, and we didn't have this concept of kalapani in ancient times. Why it emerged is a mystery to me, right? It emerged perhaps in the last few centuries. I still don't find it in that many texts, but yes, it was kind of a ritual tradition. uh, you know uh, there were some communities which broke it. Many communities used to strictly, no, 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 we cannot do kala pani, we will lose our dharma if we cross the seas. um, this is ridiculous and it has to be dropped, right? This was a change that came in which serves no purpose today, and clearly is not in India's interest. We must be a seafaring trading nation. We must impact the rest of the world. We must trade with the rest of the world, which is what will make us wealthy. So this Kala Pani tradition makes no sense. The same thing of casteism, of Jativad, as Dr. Ambedkar had written in his book Over the Shudras, very clearly in ancient times. Uh, the Varna system is actually different, but very clearly your status was not defined by birth. It was not defined by where you were born. Uh, Dr. Ambedkar wrote that in Who Are the Shudras. In the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna says very clearly, Chaturvanya Maya Srushtam Guna Karma Vibhagashaha, that he's created the four varnas based on guna and karma. Doesn't mention birth anywhere. Um, and if you think about it, even and the composer of one of our seminal texts, the Valmiki Ramayana, Maharishi Valmiki ji was not born a Brahmin, but he rose to the status of becoming a Maharishi. Or the great Rishi Satyakam Javali, who wrote Javali Upanishad, who was actually the Raj Purohit of the Ayodhya royal family in Lord Ram's time, a very very senior position. He was the son of a single Shudra mother. Uh, and our land was so liberal in those days that no, your guna and your karma decided your status, not your birth. And Satyakam Jabalaji became a rishi. This was the way our culture was, and there's no doubt that casteism became strong, rigid, negative in the last 1,500 years, and it has become a lot weaker, no doubt, in the last 75 years. And we must work against it and try and bring people together from all communities. This is a reform that will be positive and will be good for the future. So, sum and substance of what I'm trying to say is that our ancient socio-cultural civilization has survived for so long because every generation focused on keeping the flame alive rather than worshipping the ashes. Our focus was always to have that ideal mix of rigidity and flexibility. Uh, Rigid enough that we won't be walked over by invaders. We suffered horrific invasions over the last 1,000 years, and our identity didn't die out. Happened to many other ancient cultures where these same invaders went to, for example, Zoroastrian Persia or Central America. Many of those great ancient cultures are dead. We are still here. So we were rigid when we had to be, but we were also flexible enough to adapt to changing times when needed. So we need that ideal mix of rigidity and flexibility, knowing what is central to our being, what our ancestors taught us, and keeping that alive, but being flexible enough to make the changes that are needed to compete and survive in today's day. So that's the the speech that I wanted to make, give you a sense of what I think our socio-cultural civilization is about. Now, Soumya ji, over to you, and the questions that you may have.
Yes, sir. My very first question is, what is one misconception about Bharat that that you wish to educate Indians about when it comes
So,
to civilization?
I think so many things. I think this the greatness of our civilization itself. A lot of it is actually hidden in
Mhm,
our textbooks, and our youngsters don't know.
mhm,
So um, for example, our history books tell us Vasco da Gama discovered the sea route to India, which is nonsense. It's
mhm,
not true. Uh, Vasco da Gama only discovered the route from Portugal to the Cape of Good Hope in South Africa, in southern Africa. Out there, he met an Indian Gujarati trader who actually guided Vasco da Gama from southern Africa to the coast of Kerala. That Indian Gujarati trader's name was Kanji Malam. By the way, Kanji Malam himself did not discover that route. He followed a route that Indians had been using for 2000 years, right? Uh, like I said earlier, we were the greatest seafaring nation of ancient times. But these things aren't taught to our kids. Our kids don't know. This is what I'm trying to bring across in my latest book. Cool facts about history like this. Misconceptions that so many kids don't know because it's not taught to them, right? But my book is, it's not a textbook. It's a fun fiction book. It's called Dhruv Tara and the Great Indian History Quiz. But through that adventure, you learn cool stuff about Indian history, which has been hidden in your textbooks, and our kids need to know. Let me tell you a few other things. Like for example, so many Indian kids believe that British East India Company and the Dutch East India Company were the first multinational companies on earth. Again, not true. There was an Indian company called the 500 Lords of Ayovole. Uh, Ayavole is Aihole, which is now in modern Karnataka. This was founded 1400 years ago, so a good 1,000 years before British East India Company and the Dutch East India Company. It was a multinational guild. They were called Shrenis in those days. It was a multinational guild. It had didn't just have Indian partners. It even had Chinese and European partners. It had its own ships, a massive fleet. It had its own soldiers to protect the fleet, officers across the world. Its hundis would be honored in other nations because of the sheer credibility that the 500 had. And this was just one. There were many other guilds like this. Now again, this is not taught to us, right? Or the fact that our ancient scientific achievements, in metallurgy, in medicine, in so many other areas, our greatest universities, which many of them were destroyed by the invaders, like Nalanda University was destroyed by Bakhtiyar Khilji. Again, these things are not, some of them are taught to us now because our textbooks have been decolonized a bit, but frankly, not enough. You know, we are taught that ancient Indians we are basically an oral culture. We didn't write too much. और अंग्रेजों ने आके किसी तरह हमें बचा लिया. हमारे पूर्वज तो लिखते ही नहीं थे, which is utter nonsense. Our ancestors wrote more than the rest of the ancient world combined. The National Mission of Manuscripts, its latest tally shows that there are probably 10 10 million ancient manuscripts, handwritten manuscripts that survive till today. Most of them in Sanskrit, but also other classical languages. This is a multiple of the total number of handwritten manuscripts of the rest of the world. Our ancestors wrote that much. So it's not that our ancestors were underachievers. We are the underachieving idiots because we haven't, let alone study, we haven't even translated most of those texts. Again, something as basic as we are taught the lie that the British created India, which is not true. The civilization of India was created by our ancestors. Now, if you're talking about a nation state, uh, yeah, okay, India is relatively recent, but so is every other nation on earth. The concept of a nation state only emerged with the treaties of Westphalia, which is only 300 years old. So if India didn't exist 1,000 years ago, hell, neither did the UK, right? If you want to judge from that definition, right, of a nation state, but from a civilization perspective, because UK, England didn't exist as a nation 1,000 years ago, but it did exist as a civilization, as a cultural nation. It did exist. Maybe not as a political nation, but as a cultural nation. So, did India exist as a cultural nation 1,000 years ago? Yes, not just 1,000 years ago, even 5,000 years ago. India existed as a cultural nation. There's enough and more textual evidence of this. Like the Vishnu Puran says, Uttaram yat samudrasya yamadra dakshinam varsham tada bharatam nama bharati yatra santatihi. North of the ocean, south of the Himalaya, lies the nation of Bharat, and there live the descendants of Bharat. Even foreigners used to acknowledge the existence of India. There's this wonderful series of 4 books called the India They Saw, compiled by Meenakshi Jain and Sandhya Jain, which speaks of ancient Greek, Lankan, so many other foreigners who came to India, their travelogues, and they used to record India as one land. Right? So foreigners were also clear that we were one land. And the problem is because we ourselves don't know this, this data doesn't go into public scholarship. So even AI is picking up wrong things. So
Mm.
I've done an experiment like I think a year, 2 years ago. Um, yeah, a year ago, the friend of mine, Bhavish Agarwal, he had an AI called Krutrim, which he's started, which also picks up Indian data, Hindi, Tamil, various Indian language data as well. So we did it live. We went on Chat GPT and asked, was India a nation before the British? Chat GPT said no, quoting Winston Churchill. Then we went on Krutrim immediately and asked, was India a nation before the British? Krutrim said yes, and it quoted Vishnu Puran. Right? So the point I'm trying to make is if we don't bring out our scholarly stuff in English, all right, Krutrim is to picking Indian language stuff. But if we don't bring it out in English, then the English AI will pick up the British versions of history, which will be negative for us. We can also continue training AI, keep asking questions to Chat GPT and point it to other references, but that's a much harder route. We need to just create enough and more of that input data, which will go into AI as well. So many of these misconceptions about India, we have a lot of work to do to set it right.
Amish ji, if you had to explain the Indian civilization to a 15-year-old, without using any words like religion, spirituality, mythology, or culture, how would you explain it to a 15-year-old?
The strength of very good question actually. How does one simplify it for a 15-year-old? The strength of a civilization is not about how hard it hits others. It's about how hard it can get hit and still keep going. Uh, and the true judge of a strength of a civilization is time. Like the Sanskrit word for a classic is kaljai, that which defeats time. Right? Civilization or a culture may appear very strong for 200, 300 years, and then it may be gone. Uh, if the only ones from the branches that have survived is us, then there must be something really special in us. Research into it. Research what's special about us. Why have we survived?
What is that thread that connects Vedic India, Buddhist India, Jain India, Bhakti India, the medieval India, and the modern India?
The thread is dharma. I think one of the problems though with the word dharma is it's a very complex word, and very often people erroneously translate it as religion. It's not religion. I mean, it's above religion. It's beyond religion. Religion is panth essentially. Um, Dharma is that which sustains, that which is permanent, that which balances. Our ancestors wrote entire books, entire libraries exploring different aspects of dharma. Um, and the more we explore it, the more we realize how complex it is, and the more we realize it is the one concept that actually balances, that holds things together. It's uh, it's like the magnet that holds our diverse land together. So it is not like a strict set of commandments. Everyone has to be this way, otherwise they'll be beheaded. That's not our way, right? it's like a magnet which attracts diversity to it, right? It's like a central pillar, like the pillar of light which represents Lord Shiva. That is dharma, and I think that is what unites all of us. um, it's a very subtle concept. It's not given to easy definitions, but maybe that's why it works.
If dharma is about maintaining balance, who decides what balance means in a changing society?
Very good question. um, the society itself, yeah. We're not a top-down culture. We're a bottom-up culture. And if you read the various smritis that we have in our civilization, uh, smritis keep changing according to different ages. Um this thing that's often done by the British and some on the left, that Manu Smriti, it's not the only Smriti. Every age has its had its Smriti, and there's no one Smriti mm, that has kind of been mandated all across India for all time. It doesn't work that way. Not our culture. Some of the Smritis are very conservative. Some of the Smritis are very liberal. But the interesting thing, every Smriti at the beginning, it says, this is a compilation, I'm paraphrasing, this is a compilation of the practices and beliefs and the rules that are applicable in society in this age, right?
Mm,
So the way to see a Smriti is, it's not like the biblical Solomon the lawgiver, right?
mm.
Um, I think the way to see a Smriti is, um, it's like a record bottom up. And you see our greatest leaders, our greatest saints have gone about it that way. Mahatma Gandhi, for example, his movement succeeded because it was a bottom-up movement, right? He went door to door, went around India, and built that movement. Adi Shankaracharya ji, who at least people in my community, we see him as a divine figure, right? As godly. He didn't go around India saying, I have a divine this thing and everyone has to follow me. He didn't do that. He actually went around India debating piece by piece, region by region, and convincing people. And very often, the people he debated with would become his followers. That is the Indian way. Um, it's always bottom up, always society driven.
Can two people sincerely follow their dharma and, can they still arrive at completely opposite moral decisions?
It's happened so often in India, right?
Mm,
Um, because my swadharma can be different from your swadharma, right? I could, or I could be living in a different prant, and my sampradaya dharma is different from your sampradaya dharma, right?
mm,
It's the way it works. That's the very nature of dharma, because it is not one standard piece that everyone has to follow. If you don't follow it, you'll be beheaded or you'll burn in hell for eternity. That's not our way. Um, so uh, even in our traditions, right? uh, Bhishma Pitama followed his swadharma. Arjun followed his swadharma.
Has modern India replaced the idea of dharma with idea of rights? And if so, have we lost something important in this process?
Yeah, we have. I mean, in the traditional Indian way, duties were considered far more important than rights. Rights, by its very nature, makes you a person who complains, who compares yourself to others. Uh, will be more focused on grabbing for yourself rather than seeing what others are getting. Duties makes you focused on what you can do for others. uh, uh, you can be you can the way the generosity, for example, if when you see it in rights, you want others to be generous to you. When you see it in duties, then you be generous to others, right? It's a completely different mindset. um, I'm not saying rights aren't important, but in our way, duties have always been more important. As a very nature, sadly, of modern times, it's a Western approach to life, which is self-centered. You think about what I can get for myself, not what I can do for others. Um, Even in our constitution, rights are a part of the main constitution. It is guaranteed by the constitution, but duties have been relegated to the directive principles, which cannot be enforced. And that's unfortunate. It's not good for our country. We need to be much more duty conscious than rights conscious. Again, I'm not saying rights aren't important. They are important, but an exclusive focus on that is not good for the country.
If we rediscover uncomfortable, parts of our own history, should they be celebrated, criticized, or they should be simply understood?
Whenever you discover uncomfortable parts about your history, there are, unfortunately, in the modern day, we tend to swing on two extremes. Either we try and deny it, nahi, nahi, kuch nahi hua, we were all happy, and it was all good. Either no, no, no oppression happened, Ganga Jamni Tehzeeb, all that, it was all sitar and ghazals, and uh, or on the other extreme, start fighting today for what happened. Let's kuredo that wound, uh, and create more poison and chaos today. But either of these extremes aren't good. We both know that, right? um, I think the entire approach to past uncomfortable truths should be to try to learn lessons for today, right? So speak the truth about it. Don't hide it, right? But speak it with calmness, without hatred, without anger, and try and learn things which can help you in today's day. So that is far more useful than swinging on either of these extremes.
What is that one belief about Indian civilization that you once held very strongly but have changed your mind about?
I always felt we were balanced. I always Actually, I think most of my beliefs remain where they are. It's just lucky that I've got more knowledge to reinforce some of those beliefs. Like a core thing I believe that Indian civilization has always had is we've always been very balanced. So we don't swing on celebrating poverty, but we don't swing on becoming obsessed with wealth either, like you see in the West. And often we are balanced about it. We don't swing on non-violence at all times, no. But we are not like but violence all the time, become hyper violent like Pakistan and have ultimate chaos. Why? When we have to defend ourselves, we'll fight. Otherwise, we want to be peaceful. So you actually learn this about the Indian way. I think the ultimate truth is actually in balance, in the middle part, Madhyam Marga, as Gautam Buddha had said. Uh, and I found this to be true, in many of the aspects as I discover more and more. Um, yeah.
Do Indians need to believe that every story in our epic literally happened in order for those stories to retain their values?
No. Um, what matters is learning the philosophies behind it, right? Um, Remember that often, and our gods use the term Leela. Uh, Mahabharat happened, or a core story happened, to which maybe things got added. But am I going to get into a massive argument with someone who doesn't believe it? No, yaar, bhai, tu kuch rahe, yaar. I mean, I don't want to get into an argument with you. But if someone says that there's nothing to learn from the Mahabharata or the Ramayana, then I think that person is being childish. Okay? So you don't have to believe everything that's written in there, but have you learned the lessons applicable for your life from there? Because these are such deep texts, it is useful for you to learn from it and apply the philosophies in your life.
You said if we all must read Ramayana and Mahabharata. Should they be taught as religion, literature, philosophy, history, or something else?
Look, I mean, is it religious? Yeah, of course it is, right? Just like yoga also emerged from religious traditions, Hinduism and Buddhism, right? Um, that doesn't mean that to do yoga you have to convert into a Hindu or a Buddhist. But yoga is still useful for you, right? No matter what religion you follow. But no one is asking you to convert to listen to the story of the Ramayana and Mahabharata. That's not our way in any case, right? And those stories can actually teach you philosophies which can be very useful for you. So listen to it. Uh, and you find that many cultures which are philosophy driven, regardless of their religion, uh, they love the stories of the Ramayana and the Mahabharata. Look at Indonesia; it's an over 90% Muslim country, and Ramayana is almost their national epic. And they repeatedly, among the biggest TV programs are based on the Ramayana. They learn from it. Uh, Many of their airline is called Garuda, Lord Vishnu's Vahan. So just because they are Muslim doesn't mean that they don't learn, the Indonesians, from the wisdom of the Ramayana and the Mahabharata. And the Ramayana and the Mahabharata are not making demands that you have to convert to Hinduism uh, to benefit from the philosophies and the knowledge in there.
Can India's ancient wisdom coexist with artificial intelligence, biotechnology, and rapidly changing technological world?
In many ways, I do believe yes, because the rapidly changing world of AI and tech is challenging, is very challenging for religions that are purely faith based. That this is the truth and you must follow it, right? Because AI can challenge that, right? um, it can come out with new definitions, new approaches to your own belief systems, which can then shake your faith. But in our tradition, faith is important, but it's not central. So many of the schools of philosophy in the Hindu way are atheist schools. That does not matter, right? Faith is a personal choice. What truly matters in our way is the search for truth, right? Which AI can be a supporter of, not necessarily. Whether it'll help or not, we will discover. Uh, but if your religion is not pure faith based, faith above everything else, then actually AI can be AI, and the transparency that the web brings uh, can actually be an ally as well. But it is a challenge. AI and new tech is certainly a challenge if you're purely a faith based way of life. It is a challenge, no doubt.
If you could change one thing about the way Indian history is taught in our schools, what would it be?
I'll give you two. One,
Hmm.
decolonize. I gave you some examples already. Some movement has been made, but frankly, not enough.
Hmm.
So we need to decolonize our textbooks, and that's one of the things I'm trying to do with my book. Bring out the decolonized parts of our history. The second thing is our textbooks have to be made less boring. They're really, really boring. Yeah. You know, over the last 20 days, because of my new book, 15 days, I have done. at least 25, 30 events at schools. I must have spoken to 15, 20,000 students. I do a pop quiz at the beginning, asking all the students, ki, how many of you find history boring? Trust me, between 50 to 80% in every event raise their hands that they find history boring. Okay. And the primary reason is the textbooks are so boring. Just a list of dates, ratta maro, exam paper mein ulti karo, and then forget it the next day. Um, this is not the way history should be taught, man. It has to be taught like a fun adventure so that it remains in the back of the minds of the kids and they can learn lessons from it. That's what I'm trying to do again with Dhruv Taran, the Great Indian History Quiz. And this is the first of a series of books where I'll bring out unknown aspects of Indian history, but in the garb of a fun adventure between two kids, two 11-year-old kids, Dhruv and Tara. Um, and this is, if one thinks about it, is not just a problem in history. It's a problem in the way all our subjects are taught. They're just so boring. And you can't blame the teachers. Those poor, and the teachers have to follow the syllabus and the textbooks. No? It's not their fault. There are so many teachers I find who are trying to make the subjects interesting for their kids, but also tell the kids at the same time, by in the exam paper, follow what's written in the textbook because you won't get your marks then, right? So how do we make the learning process more fun? Um, and our ancestors used to do that. There's the example of Bhaskaracharya's Lilavati, a maths textbook that he wrote in the garb of Sanskrit poetry and Sanskrit stories. So which were fun and interesting to read. But through that, you learn maths theory. So it's not that it can't be done, right? If you think about it, even the time when Sugriv is sending out his his troops in the four directions to search for Sita Ma, when everyone knew where Lanka was already. I'd asked this question to my grandfather. "Arey, but they'd seen Ravan flying this way. It's in the south. Why was he sending it in all four directions?" And my grandfather told me it's actually a geography lesson in the garb of
Oh,
a story, right? Because सुग्रीव tells his soldiers, उत्तर जाओगे तो ये आएगा, फिर ये रिवर आएगा, फिर ये पहाड़ आएगा, फिर ये आएगा, फिर ये आएगा. Actually, it's a geography lesson, but in the garb of a story, right? Shanti Parva and Mahabharat is a civics lesson, but in the garb of a story, right? So it's not that it can't be done. Why are our textbooks so boring? This is something that really needs to be worked upon.
so what did India,
Can this be
historically
the
give
last
the
question,
world?
Soumya ji? I think we are coming close to an end. Huh?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay. Huh.
So what did India historically give the world that we ourselves have forgotten?
We've forgotten practically most things that we've given to the world. So many things. Uh, uh, Metallurgy, astronomy, shipbuilding, geography, sciences, the university system. The first universities emerged from here. Battle techniques, so many things. We've forgotten so much. We have so much to revive. Um, that's why, in that sense, I think this is one of the best times to be born an Indian because we'll have the opportunity to revive, so much that was lost. Our ancestors, they had to try so hard just to remain alive. Revival to dur ki baat thi na, because they were under attack by invaders for 1,000 years, really brutal invaders. They did their job. They bled as much as they could and protected our culture. It's our job now to revive and to expand.
My last question
Mm.
is you have spent years telling Indian stories about Shiva, Rama, Sita, Ravana, and Lanka, and Indian historical heroes. But if you had to tell one story about, ordinary Indian, the people who never became kings, saints, or heroes, which story would you tell people about? Which story would you tell to explain Bharat?
I have a story idea in mind, which I hope to take up sometime. Set many centuries ago. I still haven't. It still hasn't come to me clearly what century trade will be, but it'll actually be a trader uh, who joins a guild as an apprentice, and he rises through the system, and through that showcase India, uh, our multinational business companies, our society, the charity that we did, the way the temples worked with them. But through that, because such people did exist, people who join as apprentices and then rise all the way up to partners and then become among the wealthiest individuals on earth. So a story like that is in my mind. My only problem is I have too many ideas for one lifetime, so I have to write much faster. 13 books in 16 years is pretty good, but I need to write even faster. All right.
Um, Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
From 7 a.m. to 7:45 a.m. As a part of Talk by Students, we have iconic freedom fighters of Bharat, 1857 to 1947, and